available and an option for us ahead of this third school year to be impacted by COVID. You have the end of 1920 impacted on all kids home, and then you had last year impacted. No one was vaccinated for at least a good 70% of that school year, and now we've had to send our babies back to school under 12 without a vaccine. Is the end in sight?
Yeah, the end is in sight, and this is a very important day. Monday, September 20th, I think, will go down as a really important moment in this terrible time. And we just talked about it last week. When are we going to see the data? And the Pfizer announcement today, I think, really answered three questions. Number one, what dose should we use in children down to 5? And they use 10 micrograms, about 1/3 the adult dose. Number two, really important, is it safe? And from their release, it appears to be very safe, with none of the heart inflammation reported in the 2,200 kids. And then finally, is it effective? And to see, once again, this is their announcement, the efficacy being equal to what the adult shot brings, that's a really important data, and I think a very historic day.
Can you tell me what happens next as one of the parents who's eagerly awaiting the day I can call and make an appointment for my son? Do you think that vaccination sites will start to book child appointments? Do you think we should check in with our what should parents do today?
Yeah, the process, as you mentioned, is going to be this data will be submitted to the FDA. They've got a very important task that they must do. Double check the safety data, look at the efficacy data, make sure that it meets their standards. But I know behind the scenes, pediatricians, family medicine docs, children's hospitals, federal and local and state health officials have been really revving up to figure out the question, how do we get these vaccines down to age 5? So I think between now and Halloween, I hope that process at the FDA can take place. And then I think after that, you're right, I think the pediatrician, the family medicine, the children's hospital professionals are going to get a lot of phone calls. How can I get my child vaccinated?
And that will happen in a lot of places, and we hope that happens every place, because I remember the first time I started seeing images, Claire, on social media and then on local news clips that were circulating of babies on ventilators in hospitals. And I thought, this is it. This is going to break the fever of all the insane disinformation and BS that contaminated the conversation about how to fight a global pandemic and how to protect people here at home. And lo and behold, it didn't have that effect. And I wonder what your prediction is from a state that struggled in parts of it to convince people that the vaccine was safe. Do you think this will be well received by everybody there?
Well, my hope is that the pediatricians are now going to be a part of this war against disinformation. And keep in mind, Michelle, that my state, like every state in the union has a requirement of vaccinations for kids to go to school. And I know my grandchildren go to their pediatricians and get their shots, and then the evidence of that shot has to be produced to the school before my grandchildren can go to that public school. And so now these pediatricians are all going to be part of this, because a lot of parents are going to be contacting pediatricians. They're used to providing shots in order for kids to go to school. That's what's so ironic about this, is all these parents beating their chests about they don't want their children to have vaccines. They've been giving their children vaccines every year since they were born so they could go to school. Well, this is no different.
And you can, if you listen to your pediatrician, you call me Michelle, you can call me anything you want. That goes for anybody. But Claire, I wanted to raise this today, and I want to get ahead of this because that's true everywhere, but it's especially true in Republican-led states. Let me just share some of this reporting. Mississippi, which has one of the lowest coronavirus vaccination rates in the nation, has consistently led the United States in childhood vaccinations, a point of pride for its health officials and many of its lawmakers. Alabama, similar to Mississippi, refuses to acknowledge philosophical, moral, or ethical exemptions to mandatory childhood vaccinations. I wonder where they'll put consumer right-wing disinformation in that category. And I want to play this again. This is Chris Wallace confronting Governor Ricketts about his state's history of not allowing any exemptions for childhood vaccines.
It should be a personal health care choice. This is not something that the government should mandate, and somebody shouldn't have to make the choice between keeping their job and getting a jab in the arm. I mean, it's just wrong. I've talked to people, a number of people who have told me if they make me take the vaccine, I'm just going to be fired. I'm not going to do it.
But you say it's a personal choice. In fact, to attend school in your state of Nebraska, children must be vaccinated against a number of diseases. Let me put them up on the screen. They must be vaccinated against diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis, polio, measles, mumps and rubella, hepatitis B, and chickenpox. Why are those mandates that parents in your state must comply with and do comply with routinely? Why is it that they're not so objectionable and such a violation of personal freedom, but Biden's vaccine mandates are?
Well, for all those that you just listed, there's a long history that parents have had the opportunity to see how those things have been implemented. And there's still a lot of people out there who don't know what to trust.
No, there aren't. There aren't, Claire. I mean, there are people out there who have been disinformed, who have been led astray by disinformation.
Yeah, and what people are is they're being led by the nose. This is in this calcified circle of disinformation in the base of Donald Trump's Republican Party, where the vaccine has become a political badge. And if you get one, then you're not for Trump. If you don't get one, then you hate the government and you're all about Donald Trump. It has become political. Now, interestingly enough, this is going to be different if the schools start requiring this vaccine along with a long list of other vaccines they require, which of course they should. It's about keeping kids safe. So I believe that what you're going to have is you're going to have some of these right-wingers now call for the abandonment of the vaccine requirement for chickenpox and for diphtheria and for hepatitis and for mumps and rubella. I think that's the next step that's going to happen, and how dangerous that is for our children.
I mean, Dr. Anderson, I saw you nodding. I have a physical reaction to hearing that childhood vaccinations are going to become a new battlefront in the sort of right-wing culture war. But among your colleagues and other pediatricians, are you prepared for this?
Yeah, I would agree with Senator McCaskill. I hope we can take this as far away from the political debate as possible and bring it back to the really important relationship that a pediatrician has with a family. Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about the safety of this vaccine. Let's talk about how seriously some kids across this country are being affected. And even the notion of going backwards on vaccines literally sends chills through my spine. I'm old enough and have enough gray hair. I've seen kids die in the intensive care unit of varicella, chickenpox. So we can't go backwards. This is a day for us to move forward.
Can you talk about the risk to children in the low vaccinated states? I know that I've sent you some of these articles, and we've talked not on TV about the risk to kids under 12 who don't have the choice of being vaccinated. But what is happening to kids in states with low vaccination rates?
There's a couple really important things. As you point out, if you are in one of the lower quartile of vaccine states, that almost triples your risk of being seen in the emergency department for COVID. That data is clear. So low vaccination rate, kids are at risk. There's another important constituency here, and that is children's hospitals. Children's hospitals are just a vital part of the fabric of American healthcare, but right now they're almost at capacity. And the fact that we're going into winter and that could get worse, the last thing we want to do is those terrible stories you showed about rationing or triaging care. God forbid we get to a place where we're talking about that at a children's hospital. We've got to get kids vaccinated.
So, Eddie,